a word like no, or a word like yes, maybe even words like hell, or how to say sorry, maybe words like I do, when a proposal is given. And so many other words that, if you think about it, can literally change your life. Now I want you to think of what's the one word that could best express our response to the message of Easter. To the idea of the empty tomb and the resurrection. And I want you to come back with me in a time. So let's just wait for the kids to walk past and they believe in what he says. And as you do, you leave everything behind, everything that you knew. Some people have left their homes because the rest of the family did not want to follow them. Maybe you left your family. You left your work. People told you that you were crazy, but you didn't care because you were convinced that this man called Jesus is God. That his little community was going to change the world. And for a while, this amazing adventure was going well. And one Sunday he went into Jerusalem and everyone wanted to make him king. They were all thrilled, but he wouldn't be the king that they thought he would be. And things went south really, really fast. By Friday, what came to be known as Good Friday, this man who had given everything to follow was now dead. Not just dead, but he was crucified like a common thief on a Roman cross. And that meant failure. And you were in deep, deep despair because you literally gave up everything to follow this man. And on Sunday, you go to the tomb because you had nowhere else to go. And it became very confusing because the tomb, as you can see, was empty. And the stone that blocked the tomb has been rolled away. The Roman guards who were guarding it are gone. And there is an angel, and the angel says, Jesus is not here. He's still alive. So you go and tell everybody the good news. Now that will probably be quite dangerous. The Romans will probably kill you for saying what you are saying. But to kill Jesus, and it seems like he's doing great. So don't worry about it. Go and tell everyone. Hate is out and love is in. Love has conquered death. And the crucified carpenter from Nazareth is now the master of the universe. Jesus Christ is risen. Now what do you think would be the first words out of your mouth if you heard that for the first time on Sunday morning? There's a tradition that has been around for a long, long time. As we gather like a gathering like today, the minister will say, Jesus Christ is risen. And all the congregation will respond, He is risen indeed. And that's a beautiful sentiment. But I don't think the response was anything that polished. I think the first Sunday morning, when they heard that message, Jesus Christ, the guy you knew, the man you followed, this carpenter, this rabbi, is raised from the dead, I think the first word out of their mouth on that first Easter would have been, wow. something happens that turns the world upside down. But we didn't see it coming, and we don't quite know how to take it all in, and so the only thing that comes out of our mouth is, wow. Wow is an expression of wonder and awe and being dumbstruck. It's interesting that every language has a word for wow. It doesn't have a definition. And of all the words we look at, it's the one that doesn't really have a definition. And if someone just says wow in a moment of shock, we know exactly what they mean. The other word that I'm most likely to say is, oh my God. Because in those moments, the soul knows there is something bigger than just us. Someone bigger than just us. So I want to talk to you in the last few minutes of today about this Easter word, wow. Because it has something to teach us this morning. Now, reality is filled with wows. Our universe was built on one big wow. It's staggering to try to imagine that one time everything we know was contained in something called singularity. Smaller than the head of a pin. And then something happened, and within the first second of a word from God, let there be, that singularity has exploded into creation. Wow. And these other moments come along in history. The Wright brothers get into this machine and they can fly. Several decades later, a man named Neil Armstrong takes the first step on the moon. And now Israel almost landed on the moon. I don't know if you saw that on TV the other day. That's a wow. That's a wow. But it's not just the universe. Your life is filled with wow moments. Birth. Wow. What a mystery. It never ceases to be wow moments. Go to the Great Wall of China and see the structure. Wow! I met a girl from Johannesburg and proposed to her, and she said yes, and I got married to her, and she's sitting right there in the back of the church, being with me, supporting me, loving me. Wow! Every life has these wow moments. The universe is built on wow. Birth and death are wow. But we are here to talk about this great wow. I want to walk through three truths this morning about the resurrection of Jesus. And they are really simple, and you probably have heard them at one time or another. One of them is that the resurrection actually happened. And it actually happened in history. A second truth is that the resurrection changed everything. And then the third truth is that the resurrection is deeply, deeply personal. It can mean the world, life or death, to me and to you. It can mean the world. So let's look at the first one. The resurrection really happened. This is important because in our day, often there's a kind of this idea floating around about Easter. It goes something like this. Jesus probably existed. He was probably a really good man, probably a great teacher, probably a deep, inspirational person, but he was just a man. It's just stuff happening at a natural human level. That's going around. That's an idea that's doing its round, even in churches. When he died, people missed him, and some people felt like his spirit was still lingering on, felt the sense of his presence, so that turned into a mythical story about the resurrection. Kind of a vision stuff that people talk about. Because in the ancient world, people were really naive. Some of them took it literally, and some of them took it seriously and assumed to have. And really, stories about the resurrection should be understood just in a symbolic kind of way. They're just myths and stories about the power of hope and how life has a way of re-emerging. And that's something that people believe about the resurrection. Not outside of the church, but in many of our churches. I want to explain for a few moments that for the New Testament writers, the resurrection did not mean that. It was not understood in that way. They were presenting it as something that really, really happened. And a lot rides on the way that they interpreted and understand it. There's an Oxford scholar named Richard Bacon, a brilliant guy, and he has written a fascinating book, Jesus and the Eyewitnesses, the Gospels as Eyewitnesses' testimony. And he talks about how in the ancient world, in ancient Rome, or in ancient Greece, there would be people who were quite serious about writing about history and what really happened. It was a very different genre to myth and just what people are saying. They believe to write serious history depended on talking to eyewitnesses who were still alive, who had actually experienced what they were writing about. And hopefully they were participating in that event, whether it was a war or whatever they were going to write the history of. So history is built on eyewitnesses' testimonies by ancient historians who are serious about their craft. We see this in the Gospel. This is in the beginning of the Gospel of Luke. And notice how seriously Luke writes and puts it together. Listen to this. This is Luke writing. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of things that have been fulfilled among us. In other words, many have written about this, just as they were handed down to us by those from whom the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, Luke says, since I myself have carefully investigated, in other words, I've spoken to these guys, so I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. Can you see how serious he is about writing and what he did in order to write this? Whatever you think about this writing, it's not intended to be a symbolic story. And Bacon writes that in ancient histories, they were meant to be taken seriously. Eyewitnesses played very much the role that the footnote plays in literature in our day today. If somebody writes something and they are serious about it, it begins to take a truth claim in our lives. As about knowledge, they will put in the footnote to say, you can check this stuff out for yourself. Here's one place, but it's all over. But check it out for yourself. Let's look at another one, the Gospel of Mark. Mark says, a certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexandra and Rufus, was passing by, and forced him to carry the cross. Mark notes that there is a man by the name of Simon. He calls him by name. Simon was a real common name in the ancient times of Israel. So he wants to distinguish this Simon from any other Simons. And this particular Simon came from Cyrene. Then to make clearer who his father is, he notes that his father was Alexandra, from Alexandra and Rufus. Now why in the world would Mark include those details? They were not famous people even back then. Again, Ackham notes it's precisely because they would have become a part of the Christian community. They were still alive when Mark wrote his gospel. And Mark is understood to be the first gospel written. Interestingly enough, the other Gospels don't include these names in the story. Mark was saying, these guys are real, and they're alive. And if you don't believe me, you can go and ask them yourself. They will tell you the story themselves. This happened, and that really meant. We see the same dynamic of eyewitnesses' testimony in another really striking part of the Gospel. All four Gospels, written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, accounts of Jesus' life, include the names of the eyewitnesses who saw the empty tomb and heard the message, Jesus is risen. In each case, the first eyewitnesses at the empty tomb are women. We would tend not to think a lot about this, but this would have been very striking in the ancient world. Because in the ancient world, women were not regarded generally as credible witnesses. In ancient Israel and in ancient Rome, women generally were not allowed to serve as eyewitnesses in court. They could not legally give a testimony in court, but men could. See this dynamic at work in this little passage from the Gospel of Luke. Listen to that. Luke is writing about the resurrection, and he says, it was Mary Magdalene. Notice the name, not just Mary, but Mary Magdalene. Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other with them, who told this, in other words, the resurrection, to the apostles. But they, the men, the apostles, did not believe the woman, because the word seems to the men like nonsense. Can you believe that there was a time when men were slow to take a woman seriously? Doesn't happen nowadays, hey? But once upon a time, they didn't take a woman seriously. The woman said, Jesus Christ is risen, and the man said, fake news. How can that be? Way back then, it wasn't until some of the men actually saw the risen Jesus that they learned to take it seriously. Now here's the point. If the stories of the resurrections were just made up stories, trying to convince gullible people about some higher truth, people would have never made up women as the eyewitnesses of the resurrection. And yet, in every single gospel, it is the woman who are listed that way, who first told the story of the resurrection. The only reason women are listed as eyewitnesses is that in fact they were eyewitnesses. They saw it. It was true. It was credible. And they spoke about it. Nobody could have or would have made that up. The writers were taking the historicity of the resurrection very, very seriously. And whatever you may think about these accounts, that really happened. Why? Well, let's have a look at our next truth. And that is that the resurrection changed everything. It is the hinge of history. We do this to today, human history, to be the life of that one man who lived and died and was risen. And we all had those wow moments in our lives. But they don't really change a lot, do they? Once there was a man named Jesus, and he came and he taught like nobody had ever taught. That God is real and God is loving, and God is more loving than the most loving mother or father, because God cares about us. Not a sparrow can fall from its nest that God does not know, that God doesn't care. God is infinitely good. God is concerned about justice. They taught that there was this amazing movement and Jesus died and the movement died with him. No. You all understand that on Saturday, between Good Friday and Resurrected Saturday, this movement died. There was nothing left of that movement. But then on Sunday, this movement rose with its leader. And it rose and rose and rose like never rose before. And it's still rising. The more persecuted the church is, the more the power of the resurrected Jesus manifests through those churches. This last week when I was in Joburg, I spoke to the minister of the church where I spoke at. And he said to me, you know that the fastest growing church is in the Middle East, in the Muslim countries, is the fastest growing church, because that church is being persecuted for baptism. And it is the fastest growing church. There are Muslims that are coming to know Jesus, Isa, as they call him, more and more and more. Christianity is not a quiet group of believers, but Christianity in the faith develops and develops and develops, and it grows and it grows and it grows. We are told in one of the Gospel accounts, so the woman hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell the disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them. Greeting, he said. I love how understated Jesus is here. I mean, he just rose from the dead and he says to them, greetings. In our country, it will say, it will be, Hazard. But like, what did you expect? This is Jesus. It says they came to him, clasped at his feet, notice his word, and worshipped him. Yesterday he was crucified, a criminal, a failed Messiah. Today he is Lord of the universe, and they worshipped him. His way, that way of servitude and humility and self-sacrifice and love, wasn't finished at the cross. In fact, it turned the cross into the most recognizable symbol in history. You don't have to live in fear anymore. You don't have to live in defeat anymore. Nations will rise and fall. Civilization will come and go. And the shadow of this one man on a cross haunts the human race. And over 2,000 years later, no other, because you see, it changed everything. Everything. And that power that the resurrected Jesus can be at work in our life today, and that's the third greatest truth. The resurrection is deeply, deeply personal. Whatever is going on in your life, we all face this wonder of being born and then of having our lives come to an end. Biblical writers talk a lot about this. Now this is from the book in the New Testament, the letter to the Hebrews. Listen to this. Just as people are destined to die once, and after that to face judgment, so Christ was crucified once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear to bring salvation, deliverance, healing, forgiveness to those who are waiting for him. Are you waiting for him? There's a truth about me and you. The biggest wow of your existence has not yet come. The biggest wow of your existence has not yet come. The most amazing moment in your life will be the moment after you die. You don't talk about that much, but it's a good thing to think about now and again about this reality, especially at Easter time, because it will come to everybody one day. There's an old story. This little kid comes running out of his bedroom and says to his mother, "Mom, is it true that from dust we made and to dust we return?" She said, "Yes, why do you ask?" And he says, "I was just looking under my bed and someone is either coming or going." Somebody is always either coming or going. And this moment will come into your life when your life will be over. Then something amazing will happen. Either you will see God, or, and imagine that moment, that will be your moment where the Bible says you will face an eternity without God. Wow. That's a wow. God doesn't want anybody to face that. So he says, "I will give you my grace, and I will give you my love, and I will give you my forgiveness. For whenever you mess up, it's a free gift. And I will be a part of your life every moment that you live. And then you can be with me forever in all eternity after you die." That one moment after you die, not only will you be celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, you will be celebrating the resurrection of you. What? I want to say that the old liturgy together when I say Jesus Christ is risen. So I'm going to say, Jesus Christ is risen. Only instead of he's risen indeed, I'm going to ask that everybody just says, "Wow." Okay? Because I want it to be packed with thoughtfulness. And here's why we're going to do this. The death and the resurrection of Jesus means that sin, your sin, my sin, is forgiven. That death, your death, my death, has been taken care of. That you can have hope, that you can have a purpose, that you have a meaning, that you have a message, that you have a destiny, that love has triumphed over hate. Not just that, but it means that creation itself is going to be redeemed. That garden is going to once again be flourishing. That suffering is being replaced. That every loss is going to be restored. That God Himself will wipe every tear from every sorrowing heart. That sickness and sadness and grieving and mourning and weeping will be no more. This moment will come. It will surely come. It will come for one reason, for one thing that actually happened. And here we go. Here is the wow. Are you ready? Jesus Christ is risen.
Wow.
That's the great gift. That's what we celebrate today on Easter. Wow. I want to talk to you about one more wow. Because this death and resurrection power comes to us as well. Not just for our own benefit, but so that we can be conduits of God's resurrected power and love and hope for the people in this desperate world that we live. Maybe there is a person that's sitting right next to you now. Maybe you love them, but you often kind of take them for granted. And in this moment you remember that somebody is made in the image of God, for whom Jesus died and was resurrected. And you want to look at that person right now just for a moment and just whisper to them, wow. Maybe you're sitting next to a really attractive stranger and you would like to follow up a little bit on this wow later on. Maybe you're in a situation when you feel like the hope is gone out of some relationship or a circumstance. Maybe it's with a friend, or your marriage feels dead and you've been betrayed by somebody, or there's a problem with your children. God wants to fulfill and fill you with His resurrected power this morning. So as we say, wow, to Easter, won't you allow His resurrected power to minister to you this Easter? And allow Him into that circumstance. Because just as the tomb is open, and Jesus is risen from the dead, so He wants to come into the dead places in your life and resurrect it and work with it. Would you allow Him with that privilege? Would you allow Him into your life this Easter? Let us pray. Lord, there are people who are here right now that really need your presence and the power of the resurrected Jesus in their lives. Lord, listen to the innermost beat in our heart right now. And if this is you, sitting right here in church, you've never committed your life to God before, you can do it right now. You just surrender. You just tell him, Lord, I confess my sin and I repent. And I ask you to come in and forgive me as a gift of grace. And I ask you, Lord, to be my leader forever. And I ask you, Lord, that just as you rose from the dead, that deadness within me will rise with the power of the resurrection. That I will come to know you as the one who loves me. Lord, I pray for every man and woman and child here. May they have the resurrected power fall upon them right now. We allow freedom for your Holy Spirit to breathe upon us this morning. Every person here. And as we listen to the next song, Lord, we pray that you will pour your Spirit upon your people, upon this church, upon this town, upon this province, upon this country, upon this world. But start the word right here, right now, upon our hearts. I'm going to ask Tammy to just put the next song. Just allow the words of the song to minister to you, and ask the Lord to just fill you with His Spirit. Just fill you with that power. It's completely inappropriate. I've just been told that the computer died. Not the fun thing was to yell and resurrect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to finish our service. But if that was you, and you've never committed your life to the Lord, maybe this is the first time. You're coming here, you've been going to other churches, but you never really experienced that connection, that resurrected power. And if that is you, then somehow today, before we go into the fellowship time, or get hold of me on cell phone or whatever, but just let me know that that was you who made a commitment, so that I can walk with you. Even Jesus walked with his disciples on the road. He met two of his disciples on the road to Emmaus. He continued walking with us. And it's a journey that none of us need to walk alone. So if you have made a commitment for the first time ever, just let me know so I can walk with you. If you recommitted your life and you've asked the Lord to just pour that resurrected power on you, whatever circumstances you go, let him know. You don't know. This is a community of believers, and we are supposed to walk with each other and love each other. Amen? All right, let us stand for